Hey guys, welcome back to the continuation of Deadpool Kills Everybody again. And this video is part 2, of course, of the full coverage. I'll put a link down in the description, and you know I always got annotations popping up for the full playlist so you guys can start from the top. But this one I mainly did in 2 parts because I liked how it started and I really didn't want to wait till the last one came out. But just as a quick refresher, in case anybody's new to the whole concept of Deadpool killing the Marvel Universe, this obviously isn't the first time that it's happened. But just to be clear, whenever it does happen, it's happening in an alternate universe from the main continuity. So when you read these issues and you see them off in the characters in a series like this one, you're not like, oh my god, everybody's dead, what now? No, that's not the case at all, because this whole series takes place within its own separate universe. But picking up from where we left off in the last video, we had a few different heroes looking into why this is happening and doing an investigation to really find out what's going on with Deadpool. And that small group included Jessica Jones, Kate Bishop, Cable, Punisher, Moon Knight, and Misty Knight. And also the addition of Gwenpool, but she was mainly only working with Moon Knight. He didn't really share with the group that he was working with there. He was just like, I got a guy looking into some stuff. And the group would kind of make their way to each scene after the worst had already happened. But the problem with that, the damage was already done, and Deadpool would move on to his next targets. And for that reason is pretty much why Moon Knight would take the initiative of using the intel that the group was coming up with and combine that with his own investigation that he had going with Gwenpool. Because if not, the group was pretty much like a dog chasing his tail. Like they would always arrive to the different scenes and Deadpool was moving so quick and there wasn't like a pattern or connections to the targets being made aside from them being heroes. And some on the list are villains as well. But it was really to the credit of Moon Knight thinking outside the box and getting Gwenpool's help. And that showed the guys who was really behind all of this and put them ahead. And Gwenpool ended up tracking everything back to a small group of villains. The main one was Red Skull, and you also had Magneto, Dr. Doom, and Abomination. But this is kind of like your cabal for this universe. And for the most part, this is an unlikely grouping of villains, at least in my opinion, for a plan like this, because I'll more likely see perhaps Red Skull or Doom come up with something like this individually. But Gwenpool, who was following this lead, she gets caught and chased off because she just had to move in closer and get solid evidence to send off to Moon Knight. And she had to risk her life because recording of the conversation just wasn't enough. But as far as the heroes that are investigating this, they do split up to cover more ground. And this makes Moon Knight and Punisher the closest to the location that Gwenpool gives out. And when the two of them get there, they're the only ones that know at this point. And when I was reading this and seeing like the only them two was getting there, seemingly nobody else is around. Punisher on one hand is like, we should go, nobody's here. But then Moon Knight's like, nah, let's stick around, get as much information as we can. It just felt like one of those horror movies where you're looking at the screen like, dude, why would you walk in there? And lo and behold, while they are trying to get the information, Deadpool walks into the room. And he's like right behind them. And so now the way that Deadpool's brainwashing kind of works in this series, like in a lot of cases, his mind just switches into this loony, cartoony kind of state. And I mean, we already know that Deadpool's mind is a very special place after all. But when this happens, it takes a step beyond that because we go into a place where things that are happening in his mind aren't really happening in reality. And like I mentioned before, when you read through the series, you'll see that happen a lot from time to time. But at this particular moment, when we switch out of Deadpool's perception and we see the reality of the situation for what it really is, it's almost like when Moon Knight kicks him, we're kicked out of his mind. And so the next thing that goes down here is very similar to what's been happening before, because on every scene, every murder scene, Deadpool has tried to leave some type of hint or a cry for help, if you would. And that's been his way of saying, you know, his consciousness is in there trying to fight against what he's doing. So like when Punisher picks up this gun that's laying to the side and he takes the shot at Wade, Wade knew that he was going to do that. And that's why when he entered the room, he was like, hey guys, let's go play basketball. Because I wouldn't want you to pick up that random gun over there that I booby trapped and have you just disintegrate or anything like that. You know, I'm just saying. And this leaves Moon Knight to face off with Deadpool by himself. But while they're exchanging blows, I'm not sure if it's like exactly the hits that Deadpool's taking. But after taking a few hits, he's able to snap into his own and give Moon Knight more answers about what's going on. And he gives Moon Knight the information on his next target. But he does all this just before stabbing him. And Deadpool, of course, walks away going towards the next course of his plan. But fortunately enough, Moon Knight was able to get this information to Jessica Jones, who pretty much brought the entire cavalry over to that location. But you really got to think about it. With Deadpool pulling off all these kills, he's been very calculated with it. So when you think about that, you got to ask yourself, why would he deliberately give out the location to himself to the Earth's mightiest heroes? And the answer to that is kind of twofold. You know, one reason, the obvious, to get them all in one spot and line them up so you can use your quote unquote big gun, so to speak. And when they get there, that big gun is Deadpool Ultron. And of course, this is not something that Deadpool can do on his own. This is a product of Arnim Zola and the Mad Thinker. And this was an order that was given by the Red Skull, and even the Mad Thinker was like, yo, this is even crazy for me to be doing right now. Because when you take any incarnation of Ultron and put the mind of Deadpool in it, like you are begging for disaster to strike. At best, a massacre. But when this battle goes down between Deadpool and the Avengers, we're really not given an explanation to how he takes everybody out. Some of them are made clear as day, but for other characters like the Hulk, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, we really don't get the breakdown to how he takes them out. We just see their bodies laying around when he's done. But as far as the investigative team that's been chasing him down, that's a whole nother story. And like I mentioned before, they usually get there after all the damage is done already. But in this case, they actually got there while Deadpool was still there. And the first one of them that he takes out right away is Jessica Jones. And I'm not particularly sure which version of Ultron this is, because at one point in time he does recreate himself out of adamantium, but to say the least, taking him down still is no easy task. Like, he just runs through these guys effortlessly. Like, after taking on everybody else, like, this is nothing. He takes out Cable with the explosive arrow that Hawkeye shot at him. Then after that, he takes out Hawkeye and Misty Knight. Once again, this being the Kate Bishop Hawkeye. But still, I will say that the different clues that he's left behind to kind of leave a trail for them to come and find him, even though they only serve the purpose of catching everybody up just to get them killed, I do believe that part of that was still Deadpool kind of reaching out for help. Alright, so now, the power pack. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the power pack get it too. And of course, they don't show it. And when this happens, I feel like the whole theme of the disillusioned Deadpool is kind of for this purpose. So this way we're kind of told the narrative of what happened without it getting too detailed and too graphic. Because the Deadpool, they're just playing hide and go seek. But when it's all done, he snaps out of it, and the civilians who saw it happen are just like, my God, dude, like, what did you do? And when he comes out of it, he's still not 100% sure about what happened, but he can kind of put two and two together and figure out, okay, yeah, that wasn't good. Alright, so from here we go to Gwenpool, and she's pretty much like the only hero left. And when we see her, she's continuing on with her investigation of trying to figure out how to stop Deadpool from going through these hypnotic mind trips. And all she really has to go off is the leads that she gains from the Cabal's main base and the information that Moon Knight gave her. And she uses what she has to track down a Tinkerer, but the details that she has is minimal at most. But with a little time and a lot of punches, she gets more information out of him eventually. But while all that is happening, the slaughter continues. Daredevil, Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider, you kind of just gotta go with it. And it's like, you'll notice a pattern with the more powerful heroes that they don't really go into the whole detail of how Deadpool took him out. It just shows that he did. Because when you read it and just try to take it at what it is, it's like Ghost Rider died in a car accident? Like, seriously? Ant-Man, on the other hand, made more sense. Like the whole magnifying glass thing, even though it's a terrible way to go, like you can kind of see it happening. Nova's kind of a stretch too, but like I said, hey, we're just gonna roll with it. But it is kind of funny that the woman that he's protecting from Nova is Kim Cattrall from Sex and the City. At least in his mind it is. In reality, it's just a mannequin. But what trips me out is when he goes on to the next mission, he's taking the mannequin with him. Like, what you finna do with that? I mean, it's not a unicorn, so I think it's safe to say it's not your type, but hey, then again, who knows? But it's after we see Deadpool take out Nova is where we see Gwenpool catch up with him. And these two have faced it off before in the comics. In my opinion, Gwenpool did a much better job in the last telling of these two going head to head. And really it goes without saying between these two that Deadpool will win hands down anytime. But them facing off in this series mainly just serves the purpose of her telling him who's really behind all of this. And once Deadpool knows that it's the villains, the killing spree starts all over again. But this time it's on the bad guys. And when this happens, the villains are blowing up Red Skull on the hotline. Like, they are bugging out big time because they're like, hey, this was your idea, this was your plan, you need to fix it. Because when a lot of them agreed to it, of course it sounded dangerous, but at the end of the day, it sounded like a foolproof plan. Because when you have MODOK, Zola, the Mad Thinker, the Tinkerer, and you also got Doom in your corner, of course, but really you're working with at least 5 out of your top 10 smartest villains in the Marvel Universe. And with them coming up with a solution to mind control Deadpool into killing all the heroes, it kind of makes you think at a point like, what could go wrong? Because when this backfires in their face, the Abomination, he goes into hiding. Dr. Doom, he hides in a whole nother dimension. Magneto, he doesn't even run. He actually calls Deadpool and tells him where to meet him. And the main reason he does this is because the Red Skull tricked him. Initially, Magneto thought that the different killings and everything will work in the favor towards a safer world for mutants altogether. But instead, the execution of this plan did the exact opposite. It wiped out every mutant that there was, with the exception of a few, but for the most part, nearly everybody. So when Magneto's there pretty much waiting to die, he first gives Deadpool the location of the Red Skull. And he does this really as a plot for revenge. And he doesn't care about himself at this point because he's colluded in the orchestration of the genocide of his own people. So really he's at a place where he's just drunk and he's like, okay, Deadpool, just do what you need to do. Get it over with. But instead of killing him, he spares his life, telling him that he has to live with the decisions that he made, just like Deadpool. And so this takes us over to the Red Skull's fortress. Over here we have Taskmaster, Crossbones, and like they're watching surveillance and they're watching Deadpool just shred through the security. And in this particular universe, the Red Skull security is nothing to laugh at because he's being protected by the Hand, Doc Ock, and on top of that, really just any and whoever is willing to stand up for the Red Skull. And at this point, those numbers are wearing thin because Taskmaster at this point is like, you know what? I don't think it's really worth dying for this guy. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm finna go. And Red Skull like, yeah, you gonna die for me one way or the other. I mean, yeah, he didn't really say that, but he might as well have. But with Taskmaster taken out here the way that he is, I for one am not crazy about it because I know how much more of a badass that Taskmaster actually is. But with the way that alternate universes work out and all that, you know, you just got to take that as this is your main continuity version of that character. But when Deadpool finally faces off with the Red Skull, we get to find out why he did a lot of what he did. And the reason for him taking out the heroes, it doesn't really take rocket science. It's pretty simple. But the more surprising twist of him turning on the villains, now he did that for the same reason he killed the heroes. He also felt like they would oppose his rule at some point in time as well. So he figured, hey, why not kill two birds with one stone? But with a small homage to Taskmaster, Deadpool ends up putting his shield to use. But the crazy thing is, even with Red Skull's head severed, like he's still holding a conversation. And even when he tells Deadpool that you're not certain that you succeeded in killing me, meaning himself as the Red Skull, Deadpool at this point doesn't even care anymore. He just says that he's done. And that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll also put a link in the description if you want to read it in its entirety, so you can catch a few more of the pieces that got skipped over. But I'm real curious to know what you guys think. I like these self-contained stories for the reason that they remind me of the old what if issues, because it allows us to see things that wouldn't actually happen in the main continuity. But at the same time, I can't help but think that if these universes exist somewhere, what would happen to these characters if they crossed over into the Marvel universe that we know now? But like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Alright, later.